Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem amma ba'd. So today we are going to talk about Islamic economic thinking. There are a few things that I just want to share with you because we've been discussing the formation and translation and then retranslation and then transmission, right? And then we talked about, the what happened after that. Then we talked about the modern times, right? So these are the phases, the different periods of what this Islamic economic thought has been through. So we chronologically we actually discussed all those things. So now let us go into something what we call Islamic economic thinking. This is to do with subject wise, of course. This is going to be the last section of this chapter. So basically this is going to be ending the slides, the first chapter. We've been doing this for like 3, 4, 5 classes. So inshallah, starting from the next class, we are going to talk about the scholars himself. So we will be choosing a scholar of Islamic economic thought, of classical economic thought. Then we will talk about him and his background, his time, and then his contribution to economic thought. So today we are discussing here is actually what and how this Islamic economic thinking traveled all the way from that time, from 7th century until today, right? So if you think about, if you want to put economic matters, right? So let's say, because as I told you earlier, the word economics, it is not found in any of the books of classical economic scholars, right? So there are so many other words. Like I told you, the word economics, let's say if you translate into the word al-iqtisad, the word itself, it did not appear in classical economic writing, but it appeared in other classical writing, but with different meaning. For example, Imam al-Ghazali has a book, al-iqtisad, but it doesn't mean that that book is actually dedicated for economics, that what we call today, because the meaning was different. Because the word al-iqtisad comes from qaf, shad, dal, qasada, yaqsidu, iqtasada, yaqtasidu, iqtisadan. So the word itself, it's like, it will be the literal meaning of economics. Because, when we use the word economics, of course, we have the definition, of course, we might be saying today, when we say economics, we always define it is the science which studies human behavior, right, as a relationship between given ends and scar, right? So given end and the scar. So when there is an alternative uses, so about all these sciences, the studies, we call it today economics, right? But if you look into the literal meaning of economics, economy, for example, economy, it is something. If someone comes and say, okay, um, uh, what exactly, it has a different literal meanings. For example, you talk about the monetary policy, then they say, okay, this is the economy of a country, development of an economy. They call it economies in plural, right? If you go to any place, for example, if you buy a ticket, let's say a fare, for example, airfare, like just say economy class, business class, right? So the literal meanings are there, and there are some differences. People use it for the different purposes, right? Um, People even say there is a difference between Islamic economics and Islamic economy, right? Because economy is referring to the wealth of the people. That's why it can oftentimes comes to, for example, uh, you know the section that we today we can call Islamic finance, Islamic banking, or Islamic tourism, or halal business, for example. So many other things. It all can come into Islamic economy, right? But economics is actually a science that actually came very late. So that's why uh, our findings must be all the time. We should be looking and finding into is there any scholar of classical economics? Is there any scholar of Islamic economic scholars? What we are going to study in future in this semester. Is there any scholar referring to economics as a discipline? I know there are so many economic matters. I know that I have given you some data collection assessment, inshallah, which I will come back to it. Of course, Sister Zainab was asking me a question about criteria. Of course, I'm coming back to it after this class. Yeah, inshallah. But it will be difficult for you if I ask you just, go and find books in economics, right? So I mean, Islamic scholars' books in economics. I mean, the classical Islamic scholars. It will be difficult. That's because they didn't use the word economics. As I told you, the word iqtisad also came later that we are referring to economics. Last time, al-iqtisad was meant for the different idea. So now, if I have to tell you that economics related matters, yes, then you have to find in that way. For example, if someone talks about kharaj, taxes, if someone talks about zakat, if someone talks about awqaf, waqaf, sadaqah, if someone talks about, the buyur, the kitab al-buyur, if someone talks about all kind of al-aqd, right? The transaction, the contracts, mostly all those chapters in Muamalat, right? If someone even talks about al-kasb, right? Earning, how do you earn? Because this is because this hadith actually that when Ibn Adam, son of Adam, cannot move in the day of the judgment without answering the question that from where did you earn and how did you spend? How did you earn? How did you spend? Look, this question should be asked, will be asked, and no one can move from his place without answering this question. So the potential is there because it became because that's why when you look into Islamic economic thought, the meaning of economics is actually broader and wider. It's everywhere. We did not put economics as a discipline in our academia of Islamic academics. We actually put it everywhere. It's like it, it's like when you talk about iman, it's everywhere. When you talk about salat, it's everywhere. You don't have to make it as a science because it is one of the most important part of the life, because every human being has to earn, every human being has to spend, right? So that's the reason why you can find someone may wrote kitab al-iman, but there is also a chapter or section talks about uh, you know uh, talks about economics, the economics that what we are referring today. Someone may write a book called kitab al-zuhud. Zuhud, zuhud, right? Zuhud means asceticism, right? You leave everything for the sake of Allah. But inside that book, some scholar may brought the book of business, the book of manufacturing, the book of sina'a, tijara, everything. So that's the reason why I'm telling you this, because it is quite broad. Not to say that we didn't know, we didn't see as a discipline. We have seen it, but we have seen it even more than that. We have seen more than that, because there is no there is no restriction that you have to talk about this only when you have this. So that kind of approach. So you need to understand. That's why some of you, alhamdulillah, got the book. Some of you still trying to get the book, but don't worry, I will help you, because I have something to show you after this. You will get plenty of books actually. So I gave you just to go for 5 books each group, but in fact, actually, every one of you can find 5 books, but it is still, a group is you just need only 5 books for a group. So what I'm trying to tell is, you need to see the economics related matters is everywhere. Let's say, for example, yeah, this is what I want to talk to you about under the Islamic economic thinking. For example, what is the economic matters, related matters available in tafsir, for example? Tafsir has been written so many volumes, like, Imam Razi wrote 50, 60 volumes of tafsir. So if you open his book, people used to say that, he has everything other than tafsir. Meaning to say that he brought all kinds of knowledge because he had that knowledge. He was very good in philosophy, in mathematics, in chemistry, in astronomy, in everything. So there is, he didn't see himself that he has to be the social scientist. He has to be the scientist. Today, maybe we might see that he is scientist, he's a social scientist, he's a human scientist, right? He's a medical scientist, right? So those days, they were good in everything. So that was the advantage of those people. So now if you look into economics matters in tafsir, you might get, so many places people, even though they don't have proper book in economics, but they have, they had a vast knowledge on riba. So when there is a verse, for example, ahallallahu al-bay'a wa harrama riba, this verse, I think, Surah Al-Baqarah, ahallallahu al-bay'a wa harrama riba. When there are many scholars, many mufassirins, they talk more than they do when it comes to under this ayah, right? Also, so many other economic encouragement of economic activities. For example, the biggest, you need to understand this, the biggest ayah in Quran, that, right? In Surah Al-Baqarah, again, the biggest ayah in Quran is actually talks about debt. Ayatul Dain, right? Ayatul Dain is actually talks about debt. So how you supposed to do it, what you supposed to do it, how do you do it, how do you return back, what are the, what are the recording system, everything Allah talks about clearly, so that Allah gives potential importance for, Allah gives importance for this, especially this practice. So there are so many scholars, Mufassirin, actually those days. They already started giving, some of them they didn't, but some of them they, mashallah, give some sort of idea why this ayah has been mentioned here, what was the issue that time, right? So these are the things, or these are the things what we need to learn from this class. And then if you look into economic related matters in fiqh, for example, we talked about tafsir, we talked about fiqh. Fiqh actually, of course, the legal aspect of mudaraba, musharaka, those things, whatever today it's been called Islamic finance, Islamic financial product, it's all came from this fiqh al-Muamalat, right? Because today we agree that this finance is something came from economics, right? So economics is actually a mother language, sorry, mother knowledge. So all this, fiqh al-muamalat related legal aspect, everything is actually related to economic issues. And then if you want to talk about, the uh, personalities, the great Islamic personalities, like for example, you want to talk about Abu Hanifa, Imam Muhammad, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik, everybody has certain values in economic matters, because not only that they were the jurist, not only that they were imam and authors of many books, at the same time they were also doing business. They were also doing export and import. They were also, going to the market. They were doing it. Imam Ibn Taymiyyah was able to write Al-Hisbah, not because he was just sitting at home, because he was looking into the market and then he wanted to make this. So this is how things, personalities came, the different juries, analyses, right? In fact, even as I told you, like before, even someone wrote Kitab az-Zuhud, but still they also have, for example, the work of ulama, Sufi philosophers, right? Even the reformers, they all, want to bring something in their writings. Because the only the how do you how do you categorize those, how in what criteria you think is actually is this? Whatever they did, the ulama, they didn't do it because they join a faculty and then they start writing. Like today, for example, I joined this faculty, so all my research work has to be under this topic, right? Under this area. Not like that. Those days, not like that. They were not belong to one faculty. They were not belong to one department. The reason they were doing all those things because the time, their time demands it. The time, whatever time demands, they supply. That's what happened actually. They've been responding to the need of their time. That's the reason why you can see ulama, they wrote about public finance, they wrote about revenues, taxes, expenditures, all these things came because maybe at the beginning of Prophet ﷺ period, it was not necessary, but when the kingdom, the dynasty, the Khalifa, their ruling is expanding, the way it's expanding, there was a need. That's why you will also learn, inshallah, in the next class, Kitab al-Kharaj of Abu Yusuf. It is not only Abu Yusuf wrote Kitab al-Kharaj, the taxation. There are three other scholars also wrote. There are many actually wrote Kitab al-Kharaj. So you can see the differences, because why they use the same name, because every single taxation, books in taxation has a different story, because it depends on their timeline. It depends on their rulers, right? So, all right. So this is all actually with regard to the personalities and with regard to the time, the responding to the time. The next one we can actually talk about there are some scholars, they did their economic related matters. They did their work in economic related matters based on the objective analysis. So this is, for example, Ibn Khaldun. This is where actually things are changing, because there is no Ibn Khaldun before Ibn Khaldun. So that is the thing. Actually, it's quite interesting. I've been reading so many books people wrote before Ibn Khaldun, because for quite some time, for many years, I was not able to read. I was not given a chance to read Ibn Khaldun. But when I started reading Ibn Khaldun, it's like eye-opening, because the ulama of those who write the classical book, those ulama who used to write, I have seen, mashallah, starting from 8th century, 9th century, 10th century ulamas, their books and everything. So we know that how they write it. There is a methodology they do that. We know that we have even seen their original writing in manuscript, right? So they say the title and then they say Qala Allah, Qala Rasul, and then they bring their idea, right? Qawli, Kazalik, this is my view, this is kind of thing. And then they put the hashia, meaning footnotes, they put the numbers and everything. But we know certain methods of classical writers. But when it comes to Ibn Khaldun, it was totally eye-opening, because the way he says, the way he wrote, he just gives you his assumption. This is what we call today modern writing. But he was the father of those writing. I really admire his writing, rather than say that of course his idea. He's a father of sociology. He's a father of economics as well. They say, of course, that's all true. But to me, I respect is actually, to me, there's one more thing, which is actually his writing. Because the way that he write, he just gives you what necessary you need to know, learn. He doesn't need to go back. For example, I'm telling you this because of this Quranic verse. I am telling you this because of this ulama said this. I am telling you because of this imam said this. Right? So this is what actually used to be the classical ulama writing. They said that, okay, I'm quoting what Imam Sarkhasi said. Well, I'm quoting what Imam Nawawi said. And this is what he said, and then this is how the tahleel, they call it. La tahleel mean analysis. But he just gives you, you know, this is what happening, the observation of the people, looking into the society, what this asabah can do, how how things can change, because there is always there is a human life, there is a birth, there is a growth, and there is a maturity. Then from maturity he has to go down. So it's like, growth and decline, so incline and decline. So he says that if a human being is actually grows and then fall, if a human being can grow and fall, because at the age of 30 plus 40 plus he will be a mature person, but at the age of 60 and 70 he has to be going down, falling, right? But of course there are some exceptions, people still 95 96 still they are doing very well. Those are the exceptions, right? I'm just giving you the idea, general idea. So now he says that, not only human being has a growth and maturity and fall, even human civilization also do the same thing. Look how nicely he put the thing. Human, the same thing goes to society. A society not necessarily has to be on the top all the time. That's the reason why today we can see there was a Russia. Huh? Today it's not in that place. There was UK, today not, maybe not in that place. Last time Saudi Arabia was not like this, but today it is something different, right? Last time I remember my great grandfather saying that, when they were going to Saudi, they used to bring food and give it to people in Saudi. When they go for Hajj, they go, of course, there is no flight that time. I heard this from my grandfather, and my grandfather, he heard from his grandfather. So, saying that when they go to Saudi, they used to bring food and then give it to people. But now you can see that how different Saudi is. So you can see the same thing goes to, even what today we have countries like America, US, even country like France, whatever, despite of whatever this prime minister, the president of France is doing, I'm just telling you, there is always a growth, maturity, and then fall. Right? This is what Ibn Khaldun says. It is true. It's going to be there. So that is a kind of objective analysis of Ibn Khaldun, Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Qayyim, mashallah. That's the reason why they were able to talk about demand and supply factors, demand and supply factors for prices. Then they can talk about microeconomics, right? Okay. Anyway, all this economic thinking has to, all this whatever that we discussed earlier, all this economic thinking has to go into three broad categories. All right, everything, all this whatever we mentioned has to go into three broad categories. The first one is ideal economic norms and values. This is the ideal economic norms. We call it today positive economics, and then normative economics, right? We talk about it, right? So now under ideal economic norms and values, you have Quran and Sunnah. So this Quran and Sunnah is actually giving you the normative. So it can give you the normative economics. You can have it, right? We may have some problem with the positive economics, but normative economics is something you want to talk about moral economics today. So it can be normative, which is actually comes from, it can come from Quran and Sunnah, so that Mufassirun and Ulama, they have done the job. So we just need to go back and get it. It is already there. Number two, the second broad category is actually legal status and limits. Legal status and limits. So when I call limits, you already guessed, fiqh has to come inside. Fiqh from fuqaha, because, we I think this differences between Sharia and fiqh, of course. But to me, fiqh is there to tell you what exactly is right, what exactly is wrong, right? It is not going to promote what is better, what is best, because the job for the legal issues is actually to tell you, okay, this much you do, you are fulfilled, just to give you the measurement. Okay, for example, yeah, if I take wudu, huh? So fiqh will tell you, okay, you want to wash your hand, and then you have, I mean, there are there are four wajib in wudu. For example, washing your face, and then washing your hand until here, and then masah, and then you have to wash your leg. The fiqh will tell you you have to wash until this part, because the elbow, right, until the part where elbow ends, right? So now Sharia not necessarily has to tell you this, because Sharia will tell, okay, wash little bit extra. When you are doing washing your face, make sure that you can wash also extra, so that you complete. So it is not only I'm telling you about wudu, in each and everything, whether it is halal and haram, or whether it is, a transaction that we are talking about today, right? So these are the things that fiqh can give you some limitation. Okay, this is where you need to do. This is the necessary thing you have to do. But we cannot do better only with this necessary limitation. You cannot do better with this limitation. With this limitation, you can be who you are, but you cannot excel. In order to excel, you have to go to the maqasid of Sharia. Because Sharia intend to bring benefits to everybody, right? So now, if I think about Sharia, I have to think broad. I cannot say Sharia only for Muslims, Sharia for everybody, right? I need to even say whatever that fiqh has stated, which is, if fiqh says that it is not haram, for example, if fiqh says that smoking is not haram as it is haram, as wine is haram, right? Maybe the fuqaha may say that smoking is not haram like wine is haram. Maybe there are differences, because smoking is not exactly giving you the intoxication like wine is giving you the intoxication. So according to fuqaha, this is what they debate. But if you look into maqasid sharia, then sharia gives you the way that you cannot kill yourself, you cannot cause trouble to anybody, because Allah says clearly, وَلَا تُلْقُوا أَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ. Right? This is the Quranic verse, right? وَلَا تُلْقُوا أَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ. Don't put yourself in danger. So now, if I'm smoking, definitely I'm intending to put myself in danger. Not only that, I'm also putting my neighbors, somebody in front of me. I'm also causing trouble to this entire universe. So that's why these are the differences between fiqh and sharia. We need to understand this, because by following fiqh, you can be a good person, a perfect person. But to become the better person, to become the best person, you have to follow Sharia according to its purpose, according to its objectives, right? So that's why economics can come into maqasid of Sharia. That's what usually when I give you, if I think some of you may take classes with me, fiqh 1, I have given you the topics, talks about the economics according to maqasid Sharia. For example, infrastructure development maqasid, according to maqasid. Today, we are actually teaching sustainability, sustainable development goals, right? I'm also teaching the university core course. Unfortunately, you don't have to take that course. It is only meant for the first year student, the new student. So that course is quite interesting to teach, because there is a sustainable development. The other side, we have Sharia. Sharia, whatever that the sustainable development goal are teaching, most of it, we supposed as a Sharia follower, we supposed to do it as a Sharia, because everything's safe, because you have to prepare this universe. You have to keep this earth for everybody, for every single Muslim to come and pray, to come and do good things, to come and pay his zakat, to come and go to Hajj. Just, just imagine. I'm not only talking about this fara'id. More than the fara'id, also we have to prepare this world. Now, because of this pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, I am not able to go to masjid. Because of this pandemic, I'm not able to do my business. Because of the pandemic, I'm not able to travel. So because of this, I'm losing my prayer. I mean, the way I used to pray, I'm not praying like that. I'm praying at home. I'm not paying my zakat because my business is not like before. I'm not doing my Hajj and Umrah because I was not able to travel. Now, now, just tell me what actually caused this pandemic. To me, in my opinion, I would say, you know what caused this pandemic? It's because we forgot to follow the Sharia, because we fail to follow the Sharia to its purposes. We forgot it. We only thought, okay, according to fiqh, according to fuqaha, it is okay to do any business as long as it is, it is halal. I can sell anything. I can sell even something for 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Because this is halal. Because the first thing to come, whether it is halal or haram, if you ask any fuqaha, they will say it is halal. But that halal comes with a cost, right? So can I drive this expensive car? Yes, it's halal, of course. But in order to make that expensive car, they have to spend almost hundreds and thousands liters of water. They have to spend, they have to destroy so many, resources. Because in order for me to drive, I have to use the petrol, and because of that, they have to take the minerals from the earth. And if you ask me, taking minerals from earth, halal haram, yeah, I will say it's halal. Using petrol, halal haram, yes, of course, halal. But there is a need to think beyond that, because what causing the problem today. So now, just one pandemic showing us all kind of problems, the issues, and we still didn't understand what caused this issue. We still think that is because that particular country, they spread the virus. It doesn't matter whether that country or this country. If that country is not doing it, the different country in future will do, isn't it? It's all because of our desire to go far, desire to take more, desire to earn more, desire. So it makes us now moving everywhere, traveling everywhere. Our life become more complicated, right? We are not like people were there 50 years ago, right? Now, like I think the other day I told you this. This is amazing example. My there someone wrote this. I saw somewhere in WhatsApp saying that my grandfather used to walk. He don't take cars. He used to walk because he wants to save money. Because if he spent that money in the taxi, he cannot save money. So he used to walk rather than taking the taxi so that he can save money. I am I am using the money so that I can save time. Because I don't have time, I have money, so I'm putting my money, I'm not walking, I'm taking the taxi so that I can I can go there, so that I can actually save some time. So both of us are correct in theirs. My grandfather was right in his position, and I'm also right in my position, right? So that's how our life become complicated. So as I was telling you, these three broad categories. The second broad categories is actually legal status and limits in economic issues, but there is a need to look into How do we make it better? This is where actually the third category comes. The third category is actually historical application and analysis. This is what actually just now I told you. This is actually peculiarities of time and space, which need actually additional insight. So this third category, by looking into the application, historical application, whatever has been done before, and to bring a new way of life, new way of thinking is actually needed. This is what actually we call it addition. We call it a special insight into the study. All right. So anyway, all these three categories, of course, they need ijma, qiyas, maslaha, whatever we call maslaha mursala, uruf, all those usul al-fiqh, the secondary sources, you remember, we talked about it last time in the fiqh one, ijma, qiyas, maslaha, uruf. All these categories, they also need the fundamentals of tawheed, risala, akhirah, and amal salih. So we have all these categories. You have to think about from the perspective of tawheed, and then risala. Risala is actually Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the one he came, his nubuwah, risala. Then you need to think about your akhirah, because whatever you do, you believe in this world is actually for the sake of akhirah. Then the fourth one is very, very important for our study, which is amal salih. This amal salih not necessarily is something that you recite or something that you pray in your sajada. It is not something only amal saleh doesn't mean that only that, because amal saleh, every single thing, for example, you work, you stop your car for signal, and then you go, you get your education, you have your life, you buy, you sell, every single thing can become amal saleh. Because amal saleh will lead to the good life, and economic and non-economic well-being for leading a good life, all these, social Islamic obligations, all these things can come into amal saleh. So all three categories, they always need tawheed, risala, akhirah, and amal saleh. All right, so this is what actually uh, the Islamic economic thinking, in my opinion. All right. Also, we are almost at the end, but before I finish this class, I just want to give you a few more things like whatever we discussed earlier. So, okay, we talked about the history of conventional economics, all right? Of course, we talked about earlier, we talked about it. I just want to, give you some, I just want to refresh your memory. Mercantilism started in 17th and 18th century, 17th and 18th. Physiocrats, like Kostner, he started 1758. All right, 1758. Then the term economics came through Adam Smith in 1776. All right, 1776, Adam Smith. Then you have classical economics, started, explored by Malthus, 1778, and Ricardo, 1817. Malthus and Ricardo. Then you have the next one is neoclassical economics. It's actually Marshall, 1890, Mill 1848, and Walras and Marshall, 1890. So these are the term we call neoclassical economics. Then I think, we have Keynesian economics, John Keynes. He started it in 1936. Almost, I think that is the year he died actually. I'm giving you the, not started it, I'm giving you the year of death actually. John Keynes, he died in 1936. He born in 18 something. Yeah. So I'm just giving you the year of death. Okay. Whatever I gave you before, Adam Smith, 1776, Malthus, 1778, Ricardo, 1817, then Marshall, 1890, then Keynes, 1936. Then you have a post-Keynesian school of economics, or rational expectation. Then, of course, according to the revivalism, you can see that there was a radical stream, like for example, Marx, The other side, they had this communist economic thought. Marx 1867. Then you have Lenin 1914. Anyway, but it was maybe on the same time, but it was a different world, because Karl Marx was in different place, Lenin was in different place, and then these Europeans, they were in different places. All right. Anyway, so this is what actually I just want to give you a brief on history of conventional economics. Then let me also give you some brief that we talked about it earlier. For example, Islamic scholars. We talked about Islamic scholars. Of course, all started before, even before this conventional economics. That's why I said our history starts from 7th century, 8th century until 15th century. All right. The conventional economics started only from 17th century. All right. Okay. Um, because there are so many scholars. For example, there is one writer, his name is Udovich. Udovich, he actually wrote, he says that some of the institutional practices and concepts already fully developed in Islamic legal sources. Because he points out that, in the late of 8th century, until several centuries later, it was already completely in practice, developed in practice as a Islamic legal economic system. He also says, this economic system like laissez-faire, state intervention. For example, we know that laissez-faire, who brought it? We call Adam Smith. But this laissez-faire and state intervention already been talked about Ibn Qayyim. And Ibn Qayyim talked about in 1350. And his Ustaz Ibn Taymiyyah talked about this laissez-faire and state intervention. He talked about it. In 1328. So look at the differences, right? Also, price theory. Today, what we call price theory, it was discussed by again Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Qayyim, which we will inshallah talk about it when their week come. Because everybody has a week, we will inshallah talk about it. And some of them we will talk, some of them we don't talk. So you can note those names that we are not going to talk about it, so that you can add those names into your data collection. And then okay, let's move to monetary economics. For example, monetary economics, Ibn Mishkawai. Ibn Mishkawai, he talks about it is 1030. Ibn Mishkawai, we are not actually including in our course outline, so you can take his name. And of course, monetary economics, Imam Ghazali also talks about it, 1111. The year is 1111. Also, Al-Maqrizi also talks about it. Then we have public finance, revenues and expenditures. Of course, the first one was Kitab al-Kharaj, done by Abu Yusuf. Inshallah, we will talk about him next class. And then we have government revenues and norms of their collection, discussed by Abu Ubaid 838, Mawardi 1058. You can add Mawardi into you, because Mawardi we don't talk about him. So someone can call it book of Mawardi. Then we have principles of taxation, Abu Bakr Turtushi, principle of taxation. Then we have public borrowing, Imam Ghazali talks about it. Then Ibn Khaldun talks about positive analysis of the effect of tax on work efforts. So this is he talks about so many things. One of them is positive analysis. Then Maqrizi again talks about problem of tax burden, right? Maqrizi in 1442. Then we have again Turtushi talks about development and provision of physical infrastructure and public goods. So this public goods, common goods, he talks about it, Turtushi. Then again Maqrizi talks about the budget preparation, right? Then again we have Turtushi, Ibn Qayyim, Ibn Taymiyyah, we have Ibn Hazm. Everybody talks about economic development, because development economics is actually a big, very, very big area. Most of our department of economics, most of our lecturers are coming from this economic development. All right. Again, Turtushi talks about social security system. Other than this, division of labor, for example, Ghazali talks about it, but mostly Imam Ibn Khaldun talks about division of labor. Other than this, we have also some scholars, like not that old, but they are like 300 or 400 years old, like Shah Waliullah Dehlavi, for example. Yeah. So Shah Waliullah Dehlavi, not that old, a few centuries only, maybe 200 years, 300 years within that time. He also wrote Hujjatullah al-Baligha. You can also add his name, his book, if there is anything. He talks about irtifaq. Irtifaq, one, two, three, four types of irtifaq. You can actually add his book, Hujjatullah al-Baligha. So these are the few things that I just wanted to give it to you. I think with this, I will finish this lecture. This is your attendance, please.